festival powered by Union Bank of India.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Kala Ghoda Arts Festival. We're so happy. This is the first time in 22 years that the fest is going virtual. My name is Rohini Ramnathan, and I'm really excited to introduce today's session to you. But before we get to that, of course, let me just tell you quickly, today is Super Sunday at Kala Ghoda because we've got some absolutely fantastic sessions lined up even through the day. All right, so in case you're a fan of Tahira Kashyap Khurana, there's a session with her and Smriti Kiran. This is a collaboration between Kala Ghoda and Mami, which is the Mumbai Film Festival. Right after that at 6 p.m., don't forget, there's a beautiful chat between Shilpa Rao and Anvita Dutt, two fantastic women creators. And I really urge you to come and watch that session. It's a cool format and I think you'll really like it. And then, of course, one of my favorite things, it's Sunday, and what better, okay, than a concert. So don't forget, Leslie Lewis is going to be in concert. He's going to be, live, and he's going to be taking all your requests. So please make sure that you tune in at 8 p.m. for that. Which brings me, of course, to right now, for the early risers, they always say, you get the worms? What are worms? I don't want worms. I want something better than worms. So today's session is, of course, split up into two parts. There was a contest that we did on the Kala Ghoda Instagram handle, the social media handles, actually. Lots of contests there, so please go log on and check out. But one of them was, of course, the opportunity to bake alongside Pooja Dhingra. Now, this is a contest that was run called Baking Unlocked. And, it is amazing because we picked winners all across the country who have received already in their homes in these baking kits from Le 15. So they're going to be actually baking alongside with Pooja, which I think is an opportunity like none other. So first off, let me congratulate the winners. They're going to be, of course, on screen whenever Pooja asks them to come on screen. But for the rest of you who probably missed this contest, don't have these baking kits, and you're watching anyway, what's in it for you? Well, it's very simple. This is truly a session designed for anybody who's either with us inside this call or even as a viewer. So while we, of course, take you through what the process is going to be, you make sure you make your notes. And guess what? All of those premixes that Pooja will be talking about is actually available for you to order at any time. Whenever you make your creations, please make sure that you tag Pooja so that she can see it outside of today's session. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you're here, you know Pooja Dhingra already, but I think it would be the right thing for me to do to give you a quick introduction. Pooja Dhingra is the founder of the Le 15 chain of patisseries and cafes, which she founded in 2010. She's a graduate of hospitality from Cesar Ritz Colleges in Switzerland and trained at Le Cordon Bleu, Paris, for a patisserie diploma. Featured on the Forbes 30 under 30 list, both in India and Asia, Pooja has won acclaim from critics, the press, and her customers, not just for her extraordinary skills as a patissier, but also for her incredible entrepreneurial journey. She's an Inc. Fellow and hosts an extremely popular podcast called No Sugar Coat. She's published 3 books. The Big Book of Treats was her first. The second place, of course, it won the second place, the Gourmand Food World Cookbook Awards. And then the other books that you might have in your bookshelf right now, The Wholesome Kitchen and Can't Believe It's Eggless. Well, for us, we're really grateful that Pooja agreed to be part of the Kala Ghoda Festival this year. So without any further ado, Pooja, over to you.
Hello. Hi. Good morning, everybody. So nice to see most of you. If I can see, if I can have most of you turn your cameras on, which would be great so I can actually see you guys. Hi, Moha, Ambika, Shama, Shreya, Pankaj. Pankaj's camera is off. Vipul. Okay, great. So we have a lot of people here and I'm very excited to bake with you guys. So if your cameras are on and you're baking with me, please say hi so I know who to look out for and what you guys are doing during the workshop. Is anybody baking with me? Is anybody baking with me? Yes? Okay. Awesome. So guys, today's session, like Rohini said, Rohini, thank you for that great introduction. So today's session, like she said, is going to be, I'm going to try and make it as interactive as possible. The big thing with doing online workshops, which started last year for me, is that I've really learned that this is great. Earlier I used to have workshops in my studio and I could only fit in 10 people. And now all of us can join in from all over the world. So I'm very happy to have that opportunity. So thank you all for being here. Please use the chat box to communicate with me as much as you guys would like. You still want, if you have anything you want to ask me, there'll be time for questions and I'll take you through all your baking doubts and concerns to the best of my ability. Okay, for everybody else who has the mix, we're going to start now. So this is a COVID baby for me. It's an idea that I was thinking of for a long time, but I finally had some time during lockdown to think of what kind of cake mix I'd want to make. And mostly whenever I think of anything I want to make, it's always something that I want to eat and I'm obsessed with. So it had to be really delicious. So I'm very proud of this one. So for all of you who have it, this is really from, a piece of my heart. So it's called a comfort cake mix because I realized that in lockdown, all I wanted to eat was something that was really comforting, that was soulful, that felt a little bit indulgent, but it was just that, that piece of cake that felt really, this is good. So this is where this came from. For everyone who has it, it's extremely simple to make. We're just going to take a bowl. I'm going to change my camera angle slightly for you guys so you can focus a little bit more on my table and see what's happening. And while this cake is baking, I'll take all your other baking questions, guys. I would love to know where everybody's from. So please use the chat box. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me where you're from. Tell me if you bake. Tell me about your biggest baking disaster. It would be great. Okay. Can you guys all see my table? We're good? Yes. Okay. Awesome. So very complicated recipe now. We're going to open the cake mix. Who else is baking with me? Can I see? Okay, Kanika, you're baking with me. That's great. So we're going to put the cake mix in a bowl. I'm not seeing any comments in the chat box, guys. Please introduce yourselves. Tell me where you're from, if you bake, if you cook. I'd love to get to know you guys better.
Enabled. I think the chat box is disabled.
Oh, the chat box is disabled. So then I guess later I'll get to know you guys a little bit more. Okay, Kanika, ready? Yes, just pour the mix in a bowl. Very important, guys, to make sure whenever, just as a rule for baking in general, to make sure that all the bowls that you use, everything is super clean, it's grease-free. If you have anything that's in there from before, it will really impact the structure of what you're going to make. So just make sure to always have super clean utensils. Okay, now we have 60 grams of melted butter. Now again, with most baking, I like to use salted butter. This is just your regular Amul butter. I feel a little bit of salt always enhances the sweetness. So I use this for everything. I use salted butter for almost all my baking. We're going to add it in. Karika, are you with me? Anybody else who's baking with me? Are you guys with me? Shama, are you baking?
Just melting the butter, I forgot.
You forgot to put the butter.
Yes, I'm baking.
Okay. Yes, Shama, it's looking good. I can see the melted butter. Okay, so once the melted butter is in, we're just going to coat this really fast. Going to mix it in. This is super easy, guys. It takes literally 5 minutes to make. And the secret sauce here is the glaze. The glaze is I think, my secret weapon for the cake recipe. Okay, and it's not going to mix in properly. The thing is, I just want the flour to be coated with the fat a little bit, which is why I've added this. And the next step is I'm going to add my water in. Toughest cake you've probably made, no? My biggest baking, I have so many, every class that I conduct, I always ask people for what their biggest baking disaster was. And I've had quite a few because I started baking when I was 6 years old. So I have many. But I think the most interesting one was actually in a workshop. And I think it was in a Kala Ghoda workshop itself, maybe 7 years ago, when I asked the audience and I asked them, what was your biggest baking sort of disaster? And somebody said sorry. And somebody said that they added, they put their brownies in the oven, and suddenly it just started like almost spilling over and exploding. And then they realized that instead of 1 teaspoon of baking soda, they added 1 cup of baking soda, which gets me to my biggest point when you're baking, guys. Measure your recipe correctly. Baking is not like cooking. It's not something that you can just do andaze, say a little bit here, a little bit there. It's very important that you get a digital weighing scale. I highly recommend it. And always weigh all your ingredients. So you're not like Shaman, you don't forget to melt the butter, okay? So that you always have everything measured out, kept in front of you, read the recipe, and then start. Okay. My batter is almost done. I'm just mixing it in together. Everybody else okay, guys?
Do we use warm water or normal water?
You can use normal water. It's perfectly fine, but not very cold water.
And how much?
1/4 cup, please.
Thank you.
Is nobody else baking, guys? All you contest winners? I don't see anybody's cameras on. Okay. Doesn't that look delicious?
Yes.
Is there anybody else who can't resist eating cake batter? Isn't cake batter the best?
It is. Yes, I can't.
This is such a problem, right? Like every day I'll come to the kitchen and I'll say, today is the day I'm going to not eat sugar. And then I'll have 5 things in front of me and I'll have to taste them. And I don't know how you guys do it. If you guys bake, if you have a secret of overcoming that or not tasting everything, please share it with me, because it's something that I haven't cracked yet. Okay, how's everybody doing? Are we all in? Whoever's baking, Shama, good?
Yes.
Mix it in. Show me your batter. Nice, looking very good. Kanika, you're good? Should I move ahead? Okay. So I have this mold here that I've given you guys. If you guys are, if you, this is the perfect size for it. If you don't have one, or if you want to use another mold, please feel free to do so. I'm going to transfer my cake batter into this. Wasn't that super simple, guys?
Yes, super simple.
So once this is done, I'm going to be taking questions from all of you. Okay, I'm just going to flatten it out. You can use the back of a spoon. Just flatten it out. And it goes into the oven for 165 degrees for about 20 minutes, guys. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the oven. And while now that we wait, I'd love to get to know you guys a little bit better. Can you put this in the oven for me, please? Thank you so much.
Can I ask a question, please?
You can ask me as many questions as you like.
Yeah, okay. So
Who's asking this question?
yeah, I'm Shreya here,
Hi,
and
Shreya.
I'm from Surat, Gujarat. And my question to you was, how do we know that we are not overmixing the batter? Because sometimes that becomes a problem when we're scooping it for baking in the mold.
Correct. So this is, in general, you're asking about any cake, right, that you make?
Yes, the
Okay,
batter, yeah.
correct. So that's a, guys, everybody else, can you mute yourself, please? Whoever's not, perfect, thank you. So I think that's a very good question, Shreya. And I think that, even in my early baking days, you're so overzealous that you keep over mixing. And knowing when to stop is a very important skill. And, it's something that only comes with a lot of time and practice. And it depends on different batters as well. So there are some batters that you need to mix a lot. There are some batters that don't need that much mixing. It's very important. Mostly whichever recipe you're using will tell you how much that mixing time is. For example, my macaron recipe takes, it's not by time, but it's how the batter looks. So for you as well, like whenever you're making a cake, the ideal, the rule of thumb that I follow is that whenever I add my maida in, so whenever the flour goes in, at that stage, try not to overmix it, right? So when you're mixing your butter and sugar, you want to aerate it a lot. You want to mix it a lot. So ideal creaming time for any good cake, if you're using a machine, is 3 to 5 minutes. If you're doing it by hand, maybe 6 to 7 minutes. The idea is you're adding a lot of air bubbles to your batter. So you want it to be really nice, soft and fluffy, because then the air bubbles is really what helps your batter grow in the oven, right? But the minute you add flour to a batter, you're activating the gluten in it. So the protein structure that really makes the cake, give it structure. For bread, it's great because we want that gluten to develop, so we keep kneading it. But for a cake, we shouldn't. So two things that I do is whenever I add flour, I switch from a whisk to a spatula, so I know that I don't mix it too much. And the second thing is I just mix it in, fold it into the very light hand till the flour disappears, and then stop mixing it, because if you mix it too much, you'll get a really tough cake.
Right.
That was a very long explanation. I hope that answered your
Thank
question.
you. Thank you for that.
Awesome. Where are you from, Shreya? Tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'm from Surat, Gujarat,
Yeah.
and I try my hand at baking at times. Have a few things that I can make well, but then again, sometimes it's like the same recipe but different results. So those are problems that keep on happening. So it's like
You don't
aaj
know
theek hai.
what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Till the time I don't have the end product in my hand after it's baked and unmolded, only then I know that this thing is fine.
But give me an example of a product that this happens with, like which.
It's a general dark chocolate cake, for example. So it's like once or twice it was so good, so amazing, and another time it was like it could not be unmolded at all, and I had to literally scrape out the things, and then I made a wonderful mud pie out of it. That's a different story, but then yeah. So I know how to deal with problems also, but yeah, problems don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That is, I mean, I think that's, anyone who bakes here knows that we all face certain issues like this at all given times. And I think that it's important to realize, what you're doing differently. So it's the process of elimination. It's also sometimes ingredients matter, right? Like
right.
if you've measured, if you've probably taken cup measurements, sometimes a lot more goes in the cup and sometimes less goes depending on how tightly you pack it. So like basic things that you should just checklist, that I'm using the same ingredients, the same brand of ingredients. I'm using a weighing scale. Everything else, I'm putting as much love in both batches that I did and doing it with enough care. Mixing time is the same. So I think if you sort of moderate and kind of eliminate all those variables, eventually you should get something that's the same. Another interesting fact is also where you place your tray in the oven. And each oven is so different. Like, for example, in my studio, I have 2 ovens from the same brand. And I bought them on the same day and everything. It's the same KGAF sort of oven. But they each react so differently to what I put in there. It's just, it's crazy. Like, it's just very different. And so even when you put it in a different rack, a different side of the oven, it's different. So yeah, it is a challenge, but it just takes a lot of like, check what did I do last time and make it. But I really like your thinking of taking the cake and making a mud pie. I think you have to think very fast, and that's very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question. My oven is a little small, so do I have to put my cake for 20 minutes or for less time?
Sorry, who's asking this question? Let me see if I can see you. Hi, who's asking this question? Samaira? No. Oh, Samaira?
Yes.
Yes, you're on mute. Hi.
This is
Samaira.
my
Okay. So ideally, that's also a good question about oven size and timing. So anytime, guys, you see a recipe and a certain time is given, always know that that is just a guideline for you. You don't have to follow it exactly to the T because every oven is different. So for example, like Samaira's oven is slightly smaller. Maybe her cake will bake a lot faster than it will bake in mine. Right, so it's something where you have to do the toothpick test. At least for most cake batters, it's easier to figure out. So Samara, what I recommend is after 15 minutes, after about 12 to 15 minutes, just take a toothpick, insert it in the center of your cake. If it comes out clean, your cake is done, you can take it out. If not, leave it in for a little bit longer and then do the same test again and then pull it out. But this is something that you'll have to eyeball and kind of see, and every time you bake something, you will understand how your oven works.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Pooja.
Anybody has questions, guys? Happy to take them
Yeah,
now.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I think you did speak a little bit about that. So I have an issue with my cookies, baking my cookies. So somehow I mean, I don't know what is the perfect way of baking it, because the lower part of it always gets brownish and it's always very dry. And sometimes I just end up like cutting it off or something like that so that I can eat, because the upper part is perfectly fine. Also, how to get the chocolate to melt in it, because it never melts, and we always watch these fancy videos where the chocolate's all melted and you're like, okay, I want to bake something like that.
Yeah. Sorry, your name was Musfera?
Yeah, perfect.
Did I say that right? Hi, where are you from?
I'm from Kolkata.
Okay, amazing. So that's a very good question also, and cookies are very important. So it's important to get them right. I think that there's a couple of things here. One is, depending on the recipe that you're using, how much fat it has, how much, what the actual content of the recipe is. And the second is the kind of baking tray that you're using and the oven that you're using, because it's seeming to me like it's the bottom heat that is really impacting the tray, which is why the bottom is getting cooked faster or burned rather than the top of the cookie, right? So those are those two things that first you need to verify and check. Do you freeze your cookie dough and then bake, or do you bake it directly?
I bake it directly.
So another good thing, and I think for most cookie doughs, the structure completely changes and everything really changes if you refrigerate it before baking. So the same dough that you've made now, the next time you make it, just put it in the freezer for about 2 hours. You don't have to put it overnight if you don't want to. Just put it in the freezer for 2 hours. It'll obviously be very hard when you take it out. Just make it into balls, put the balls on the tray. Another thing I'd recommend, are you using baking sheet, like baking paper or silpat?
Baking paper.
Yeah, so then try switching from baking paper to a silicone baking sheet. It's called a silpat, easily available on Amazon. Great investment for just in general for everyone who's watching this, guys, especially if you're making macarons and you struggle, get a silpat, life changing. You won't be able to make it without it. Okay, so firstly, get a silpat. Second is put the cookie dough in the freezer. Once you get it, you make little balls of it, put it on the tray, bake it. That should already help you. Now the thing about the melted chocolate inside, right? So this is so for cookies, I've learned 2 tips that I like to share with you. One is that there is the tip of the chocolate not melting. So there's a lot of people who want to add chocolate chips in their dough and they want the chips to retain their structure. So for that, what we do is we do a heat. It's called tech in like I've been working a lot with food scientists. So it's called like a heat treatment, which basically what just means that you take your chocolate chips and you put it in a freezer for 48 hours before you actually use them. So, you store your chocolate chips in the freezer 48 hours, you take them, you mix it in your batter, and then you bake it. The chocolate chips will retain their shape, right? So whenever you want to see those cookies that have really nice chocolate chips in place, the chips are frozen before baking. Now, the second thing for you when you want to have melted chocolate inside or melted Nutella, I was obsessed with these Nutella cookies with melted Nutella and I really wanted to just get that pull. And when you break the cookie, the Nutella is oozing out. It's super simple as well. You just take a tray with or a mold with parchment paper below. You take your Nutella in a piping bag, or if you want chocolate, I would recommend either doing a chocolate ganache or, even just plain melted dark chocolate. And you make little blobs of it on this parchment paper. You pipe it out, and then you have to freeze that. So you freeze that Nutella or that chocolate for at least 4 to 6 hours till it's completely frozen. And the minute it's frozen, you take it out, and when you're making your dough, you're making your batter, you'll insert. So that's the cookie insert. So you'll insert the frozen Nutella, the frozen chocolate, whatever you've taken, and you'll put it inside your cookie dough, like almost like a dim sum or a modak. You just put it inside, and then you'll bake that. So when it melts, it'll be this nice sort of gooey, melty consistency, and not like just burnt, because that used to happen a lot to me earlier. Awesome. I hope that answered your question. Anybody else, guys? Anything else that you like to answer? Hi, Sakshi. Kanika, hi. Your cake is in the oven.
Hi.
Hi. Yes,
Hi.
Kanika, you saying something?
Oh.
I wanted to ask that nowadays people are using, like, instead of all-purpose flour, people are getting into millets. So what do you suggest? Like, are they easy to bake? Any tips that you should? I have not tried anything, but I am really looking forward to try something in millets, like maybe nachni or jawar, bajra. So what is your take on this?
I think that it is, I've been experimenting with alternate flours also now for 4-5 years. And my biggest problem was that there was like a, firstly, because of it doesn't have gluten, right? I mean, so that's great for people who have gluten intolerance. But what I was feeling was like there was a bitter aftertaste for most of these flours when I was not able to get rid of that. But again, working with a lot of scientists over the last 2 years, it's been, quite understanding how you can make small changes to really change those things. So first is, don't use only one kind of flour, because that one flour will have will have an overpowering smell. So what I do is, for example, if I want to have 100 grams of maida in a recipe and I want to replace it, I replace it with say 40 grams of ragi, 40 grams of bajra, and 20 grams of rice flour. So I use a mix of 3 flours. That's my gluten-free sort of flour mix. So I use ragi, bajra, rice flour. You can also, if you don't have rice flour, you can just take oat flour if you just want to make powder oats and use that. But this combination for me gives me the best texture for my cakes and for my cookies. And then another tip when you're making anything with these is always add a little bit of honey, like even if it's slightly a little bit of honey, even if your recipe has sugar, a teaspoon or half a teaspoon of honey in the recipe, and add any fruit essence. So if you add honey and fruit essence, that bitter aftertaste and that strange sort of that the smell which you get with these alternate flours, it kills it, and it almost tastes like you wouldn't even know that it's made with anything else. Yeah?
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
Hi, Pooja.
Hi.
Hi. So first of all, I want to say that I'm a very big fan of yours, and you've been a really, really big, inspiration for me. And so I'll give a little information about myself. I'm Sakshi Vitalje from Mumbai, and I am currently in ITM IHM Oshivra, and I'm pursuing culinary. And the thing is, I'm in my second year and I want to get an internship. So I was wanting to ask, I mean, I hope it's fine if I ask that, but I was wanting to ask if you all are, taking in any interns
I like
at this
how you
point.
use this platform to ask for a job. Very good. So for everybody listening, the email address to send your CVs to is hr@love15.com. Please send them in. We had last year, because of COVID, we had stopped hiring and we had stopped taking internships, but we've started them again. So send us that. But please, guys, remember when you're sending CVs in, write something in the email, right? Like, tell me about you, why you want this. I just get blank emails with just somebody, and I never know who this person is. So tell me a little bit about you, why you need the internship, bunch of that, and then definitely someone from HR will reach out.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Well, that's a first. I'm sure that's happened to you before. Well, thank you so much for all of your questions. I'm sure we have a little more time. What I'm going to try and do right now is also peek into our wonderful audience who's watching and give them a fair opportunity to ask you some questions, Pooja. So I'm just going to ask you the questions that I see on my screen here. Alok Pandey wants to know how to melt chocolate in bowl to spread on cake. Some of them would be very rudimentary, but I'll leave them up to you.
Okay, so that's actually a good question. And in the start, when I started, there was a lot of burnt chocolate. So the one thing that you must know is that what kind of chocolate are you melting? Because if you're melting dark, if you're melting milk, you can still use a microwave smartly to melt this chocolate. If you put it in short bursts of 30 seconds. Take a glass bowl, put your chocolate in, put it in the microwave, 30 seconds, take it out, mix it back in, put it in a minute and a half, your chocolate should be nice and melted. Now, if you're melting white chocolate, I wouldn't recommend melting it in the microwave because it's mainly cocoa butter and it burns very easily. So what you should do is a double boiler or a bain-marie, which basically means you take a saucepan, you'll fill it with that much water, and then your bowl will sort of sit on top of the saucepan. So it will be indirect heat. So the steam from the water will hit the bowl and then you can keep mixing it and you'll melt the chocolate. Even for dark chocolate, milk chocolate, ideally this is the safest. I'm giving you all my my lazy things that I do to use the microwave. But if you're doing a really big batch and it's a very expensive chocolate and you don't want to take a chance, put it in this bowl, put it over hot water. The thing to remember is that the steam from the hot water is actually going to hit the bowl and melt the chocolate. You don't want the water actually itself coming up. So don't put too much water. 1/4 of the whole saucepan is what we're looking for.
Fantastic, Pooja. There's a lot of questions. I just want to say over 200 people watching you right now. And
yay! Hi, everybody. Happy Sunday.
All right. So you know what? There's one basic question that's kept coming in, which is about what is the mix that you've used and where can they find it? Because we started off the session with that. So do you want to tell them where they can find it?
Yes, so this is our comfort cake mix that we're making, and the secret sauce is our glaze, which changes everything. And it's available at all our stores. It's available on Swiggy, on Zomato for Love15, and it's also on our website. So if everyone is watching from all over India, we're shipping everywhere. And just go to love15.com and you get the whole set. You get the mix, the glaze, and the little tin to bake it in.
Fantastic. Thank you for, of course, few of our winners who are with us on the session.
Yes.
Received it. And congratulations to all of you. As I said, lots of questions. So I'm just going to run through this. Pooja, I also know that you have a cake baking. So I hope that you're going to be mindful at that time. And whenever you need to go, you go. And of course,
I want to just check with the others that are baking, please. I have a team that's looking at the cake, so I'm not worried, but I want you guys, I need another 5-7 minutes for the cake to be ready, but you guys keep checking on yours, okay? So whoever was baking with me, Shama, please check on your cake.
Fantastic.
Rohini, that's a good reminder. Kanika's also getting up to see her cake. That's good. Okay.
Thank you. Madhushri Basu says, I have a question. Why does any batter I make with brown butter too greasy?
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, brown butter itself, when you clarify butter and you kind of, you heat it, the fat solids kind of separate from the rest of the liquid, and that's what gives it its little nuttiness. The way to combat that is actually what I normally do is after making the brown butter, I let it solidify again. So I would make my brown butter. I keep it in the fridge for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It solidifies. And then I use it for my cookies and cakes and everything. And it kind of stays okay. It's not as greasy. So please, if you haven't tried that, try that and then see how it goes.
Well, thank you so much for that. This is, of course, a question from Vasudha Gupta. We've already kind of covered this when she says, what is the correct way to mix batter so that bubbles are not formed? So, Pooja, if there's anything you'd like to
Bubbles are good, guys. Don't think that bubbles are bad. Bubbles are good. Bubbles are what make your cakes rise. You don't want to over mix them, so you don't want too many bubbles. So just very quickly, how baking works or how cakes rise is when you take butter, sugar, you mix them, you add air bubbles in, and then your baking soda, baking powder, eggs, whatever. Just make sure that the air bubbles become bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's how your cakes rise, right? So air bubbles are good, and eventually they escape from the top. So if you undermix it, you won't have enough bubbles. If you overmix it, there'll be too many bubbles going in all different directions, and your cake will sink. Sometimes if you see that, it's maybe because you've overmixed your batter. So air bubbles are good. Don't be afraid of them. It's good. It's going to make you a nice soft cake.
That's great because the cake seizing or going flat in the center was actually another question that somebody
Yeah,
asked in that box. So
yeah.
you've got two answers in one. Anam Khan wants to ask you, oil or butter, which is best for baking cakes?
Listen, I was trained in France, so I am always going to say butter because I think, but Julia Child says butter makes everything better. So for me personally, butter. But in the lockdown, I actually started baking a lot of cakes with olive oil, and it was so surprising that the texture was really soft, and I actually really like the taste because olive oil will add a very distinctive taste. So yeah,
Fantastic. Agna Wilson wants to know, ma'am, can you please tell us how to make muffins more soft? Any tips?
just make cupcakes. That's my my go-to. Muffins are, it is a drier cake. It is generally a drier cake, and it's made so that it accompanies a beverage, which is why it's kind of dry. Most of the ones that are softer, try replacing a little bit of your maida. Like if you have 100 grams of maida in your recipe or flour, just use 70 grams and then add 30 grams of any nut powder. So if you want to add almond powder, hazelnut powder, any kind of nut powder, it just makes it softer, slightly more juicy, and you can eat it by itself without having to dip it in anything.
Shivangi Damani and a lot of people have been talking about baking from your cookbooks, which is, I can't believe it's eggless. And she wants
Yes,
to compliment you saying that it was really, really great for her. So thank you for that, Pooja.
thank you.
And I also see a lot of questions for cheesecakes. Can we take a generic cheesecake tip from you, please?
Um, I mean, I think that, for cheesecakes, the most important thing is to really use a very good quality of cream cheese that you get. And I think that is one of the biggest struggles. At least now it's easily available. You have Indian brands making cream cheese. But when I started, 15, 11 years ago, cream cheese was a big problem. So first, get a really good quality cream cheese. Second is that, a lot of it depends on what kind of cheesecake you're making. The kind of mold that you use is very important, right? So a spring foam pan is most recommended, or what I do is I just kind of use rings that don't have a base. It just makes demolding a cheesecake super easy. And yeah, I think for me the crust is, what really makes the cheesecake. And I love the biscuit crust that we use. It's just very simple. It's just, digested biscuits and butter and sugar, and you mix it in and you put it in there. So yeah, I think those are like really basic cheesecake sort of tips. If there's any specific ones, I'm happy to take those.
There's a specific question for cookies. Before we get into Avishi Asati's question, I want to tell you, Pooja, you changed my life in the lockdown with your dip keys. Oh my God. Like they're like my favorite thing ever.
Yay!
Perfect with chai. So why don't you do this way? Why don't you tell us how the dip key came into being? Because they're also cookies. And then tell us the secret ingredient when it comes to making the perfect cookie. How about that?
Love. Okay, no. Someone's gonna throw something at me. I'm just super cheesy, guys, and it is Valentine's Day coming up soon. Before I get to that quickly, I'm just, for whoever is baking with me, guys, the next step is we're gonna melt our glaze because my cake is ready. It's out of the oven. I don't know if yours is, but this is gonna go in literally for 30 seconds, and we're gonna mix it, and I'm gonna keep the glaze ready. Tanvi's gonna do it for me while I answer that question. So, Ro, it was quite interesting because for the first time I was spending so much time at home. And what was happening was there were rituals that were being formed at home that, I was never part of, because normally at 4 p.m. every day I'm at the kitchen. But now at 4 p.m. I was at home with my parents, and they obviously have a chai session at 4 p.m. where they would, their chai would come out, and, these two biscuits would come out with the chai. And I started joining in this. And every time I was dipping, whichever biscuit was there in my chai, I was like, I can make this dipping experience a lot better. I was always thinking of like, what can I make? What can I make? And I was like, I want a cookie. I don't want to eat just a plain biscuit. I want a cookie which is nice and crunchy, that has some sort of nuts, some texture. And then that's how actually the idea of the dipki kind of came to be. So it was a cookie, which is great by itself, but the whole point is that the minute you add it into some liquid, the flavors just release very differently. And yeah, we've made about 3 flavors so far, and I'm very excited to keep experimenting and seeing how that goes.
Fantastic. I'll let you attend to your cake if you need to right now, Pooja.
Yes.
Yeah.
Guys, the people who are baking with me, how are your cakes looking?
Yeah, let's do that.
Good? Baked? It's going to be hot. Please be careful. For everyone watching, sorry I have to do this, but why do I get to suffer all alone and look at chocolate all day while I'm struggling and not trying to eat it? You can see some chocolate and nuts too. Okay, so you just mix the glaze really nicely. It was in the microwave about 30 to 45 seconds only. The container itself goes into the microwave, so you really have to put in no effort. Are you guys ready for the best part of this cake? I'm gonna move this slightly closer and slightly lower so you truly experience it. Okay. Very simply, the last and final step. It's going to be a beautiful Sunday, guys.
Yummy.
Looks good, no? It smell. I can't tell you how good it smells, and I'm trying not to eat. Today was also another day where I said, today let's not try and eat any sugar, but there's this cake that's staring at me.
You know, Pooja, I remember this when you launched this line of DIY cake mixes. I've never baked in my life. And it was my first ever cake I baked. So that experience to me is everything, right? You have made us all believe that we can be good bakers. So thank you.
You can. It's really simple and it's really delicious. I saw the cakes that you made, Rohan, and I was quite proud of you. I was like, yes, she's done it. So this is the comfort cake mix. I truly believe in this name because it gives me a lot of comfort. The milk chocolate, the hazelnuts, the dark chocolate. It's really close to my heart, this one. And like I said, it was my COVID baby, so it'll always be very special. So yeah, the cake is ready. I don't know for all you others if you're making it, what the situation is. I would normally just put this, it kind of sets by itself. So even if I put it in the fridge for maybe 10 minutes, it'll set really fast. You can also demold the cake before adding the glaze. I just prefer it like this because it sets really well. And then I can cut it nicely and beautifully. And maybe I should cut a small piece for you guys.
You know, I can see Samaira's cake is looking a lot like yours, Pooja. I can also see Kanika. Kanika, your cake doesn't look ready right now, but I'm assuming it's coming out of the oven. But don't rush it. Give it its own time, okay?
Patience, most important thing that you will learn as a baker.
Patience. That's what she said. That's amazing. Okay, let's look at that. Pooja, if you can have a look at Samaira's cake on screen.
Where is it?
Looking good, right?
Oh, it's looking very good. Almost matching. We're matching.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Okay, guys, and this is what the inside is looking like now.
Yummy.
Since I said I'm not going to eat sugar, I'm really not going to. I'm going to put it away.
Oh, no.
But you guys are going to eat it. Please, please, please try this cake out or try anything today. I think baking on Sunday. We used to have a thing called the Sunday Baking Club before COVID, and then every day became a baking day. But pre-COVID, we had a Sunday Baking Club where we would share recipes every Sunday. And I think that just baking something just brings a lot of joy. And yeah, you can do this for somebody, not this specific cake, but anything. Please try and make something. I have some easy recipes on my YouTube channel, which require no effort. So go check it out.
All right.
Samaira's really tempting us. Samaira's also like, oh, let me show you my skills.
Challenging. This is great. You know, I have Chinmay who asked, do you not need to demold the cake? But again, I believe you answered that question, Pooja. So thank you for being such a pro. I just want to tell you, Pooja can't see your questions at this point because she's on a different interface. That's how the tech of this works. But wow, Pooja, how are you like this? She's done this too many times. Also, if Ashifa, okay, she says, I so want to eat it. It looks delicious. Guys, I'm sure that this session will enable you to do this. And before we go, there is one question that Agna Wilson has asked multiple times. So I would like to actually close.
I'm scared.
As your last question. And the question is, ma'am, is there any story behind your love for macarons? Because I really love all of your macarons.
What have you opened? You're opening a can of worms. No. My love for macarons is a story that I repeat over and over so many times, but every time I say it, it just makes me really happy. So thank you for asking that question. Yes, I was in Paris about 12 years ago, and I'd never eaten a macaron. And the first one I had was a passion fruit and milk chocolate one from this chef that I love and admire called Pierre Hermé. And the first time I saw it, it looked like a little tiny burger. And I was like, what are these? And it was very expensive. So I was like, why is this so expensive? And then I bit into it, and I was like, just the combination of all these flavors that came together. There was sweet, there was acid, it was crunchy, it was soft. And I was just like, what is going on? How can one little thing have so many things going on for it? And so I said that, yeah, this is quite interesting. I didn't see them in India. I didn't know what they were before I went to France. So my whole sort of mission became that let me try making them in India first and see why nobody else has made it. Is it because you can't? Is it because the ingredients are not available or people won't like it? And then I came back and I started testing it, and I realized that you can make them. It just took a lot of time to get the recipe right. You can make it, the ingredients are available, and people love them. So yeah, it's been 11 years of making them. I don't even know how many I've made. In my sleep, you can just wake me up and I can pipe them, like thousands of them, like in my sleep now, but it's taken a lot of practice. So yeah, thank you for that question.
Okay, lots of questions. I know, guys, we'd like to ask Pooja and keep her with us all day, honestly, because we have this opportunity. But Pooja, I want to at this point say once again, a huge thank you from all of us at the Kala Ghoda Festival, simply because you have a history with the festival. You know, there was a book that was launched at the festival. And I think that these are the relationships that truly, you know, go further as you grow, and you know, we'll also grow. So I just want to say a big thank you from everybody at the festival, because you said, yes, this session was possible. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so lovely to see all of you. And yeah, hopefully next year in person at Kala Ghoda, guys.
Inshallah, yeah. I really hope that happens. For now, guys, thank you so much once again. And don't forget.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pooja.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
And of course, thanks, Pooja. We'll just, you know, quickly wrap up the session. Lots of sessions coming up. There's also a random man talking. Hello, random person. How are you? Someone on the phone. Okay. So guys, I just want to give you a quick reminder, some great sessions later today. Don't forget, you've got Shilpa Rao and Amrita Dutt talking. That's happening at 6 o'clock. We've got a very, very cool session with Mami, which is the Mumbai Film Festival with Smriti Kiran and Tahira Kashyap Khurana. And don't forget, we've also got this wonderful music concert lined up for you at 8 p.m. tonight. Leslie Lewis playing your favorite hits, indie pop hits from the 90s and global Hindi. Okay, so you got your Sunny Dhapas and your Pal, you know, all of the Skies Halas. So it's going to be a super Sunday at Kala Ghoda. And I do hope that you're going to join us. For right now, this is me, Rohini, signing out. Thank you so much for joining us for Baking Unlocked. Bye.